5 writing strategies to engage every student, episode 470.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today, we're talking with Michele Haiken. She is an educator and an ISTE author. She's from New York State, and she has a book coming out this June called New Realms in Writing, Inspire Student Expression with Digital Age Formats. And last year, she published Personalized Reading, Digital Strategies and Tools to Support All Learners. And today, Michele, we are talking about 5 strategies and tools to reach all learners. That's a lot to pull together, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Especially in 10 minutes.
I know it. You try to do that. So what is your first tool and strategy? And I love how you told me before the show started that it's not just about the tool, it's how you use the tool, right?
Absolutely. We can't just think like, oh, I have this tool, I'm going to use it, but we really need to think about how to use it purposefully and effectively to help us meet our student learners and the learning objectives that we are focusing on. I mean, my number one go-to that I think that every teacher is using as a go-to today is the Google Suite, because it's just so all encompassing. And there's so many different Chrome extensions that we can use to really reach all those different learners.
Do you have any favorites?
Read, write. I mean, that whole toolbar, there's so many little gems that you can utilize, from the text to speech tool, even if you're creating a hyperdoc. When you differentiate for all your learners, there's lots you can do by just linking and connecting and bringing in the visual as well as the audio piece. When it comes to just easy assessment and evaluating and editing student writing, Checkmark is a great little tool when I'm going through my students' documents. So that's really helpful.
Plus, it gives us so many ways to give both voice and written feedback, doesn't it?
Absolutely. With writing today, it's not just about a one and done writing assignment. It depends on if it's just like a little formative assessment. But if we really are teaching our students to be better communicators, both verbally and in writing, we need to give them the opportunity to constantly revise and stretch their writing muscles and write for longer extended periods, as well as try different formats and genres outside of the traditional essay.
So, wow, that one tool could be the whole show, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Just the Google Suite and all the apps and tools. So what else do you want to point us to?
Well, I know a lot of people select and talk about different mind mapping tools that are helpful, particularly for our struggling writers, or maybe just in helping our students articulate their ideas on paper. And in addition to mind mapping tools, I've really turned to having my students create infographics as an outline or a mind map tool to really help them to figure out what direction they want to go with their writing or research, what is the purpose. And I like to use, and I give my students choices with different tools, but Pictochart is great for that. Canva is another one, so that if my students are writing an investigative journalism piece, they take all their research and they lay it out in an infographic. And then they sort of figure out, is this cause and effect? Am I just writing an informative descriptive piece? Is there more persuasion that I want to utilize? And that visual element has been really helpful for my students in them developing and expanding and writing off of the research that they're finding, both establishing it from a visual point of view as well as the written piece.
Oh, that's so helpful, because I know with very young children, they'll say, okay, create the Legos and then describe it. And really, we're kind of using visual graphics to help spur on their writing, which is so fantastic.
That's huge today. And there's so many different ways that you can mash up student writing with makerspace, whether it's just breaking out the Play-Doh or the Legos and sketching out and drawing out ideas to build a story or to create a story map. But then we have this whole robotics piece, or even something like a makey where we can then start to utilize it and mash it up together to do some blackout poetry, but then record an element so that we can speak it and hear it and bring in some different music. Students are programming robots to show character development and character maps. So as an English teacher, I could blend with the makerspace and the STEM movement into my classroom, as well as look how we can bring it into other content areas to build our students up as writers.
Oh, that is fantastic. Hands-on in writing and helping it be relevant so kids know it relates to the real world. Okay, what's our fourth?
We need to look at language and how we use it and how powerful that it is. I'm not into the traditional grammar teaching or worksheets. I see grammar as something more that we can utilize and build and focus on throughout our writing. But there's so many great platforms and tools that help students focus and pay attention to grammar, so that even if it's they're writing a creative writing piece and they switch tenses, something like Grammarly will pick that up. Or if they're overusing a word, there are different platforms where it will tell you you've used this word multiple times. Here are some other alternatives. I tend to write with a thesaurus open on my desktop when I think I want a different word, and we want to build our students' vocabulary as well as them understand effective ways to communicate.
Yes, and there's so many tools out there, Pro Writing Aid and the Hemingway app, and there's just so many great tools for that. Okay, so what's our fifth?
There is a writing platform called Writeable, which has like over 600 writing prompts and really guides students through the writing process. So I know that there's some test prep there, but if a teacher is looking for ideas or additional support and scaffolds, I look at like Newsella or Actively Learn as these reading platforms. Writeable is a great writing platform that helps teachers plan out and create a menu for students to try out and flex their writing muscles.
So many great tools and suggestions. Michele, as we finish up, do you have some inspiration for teachers who are writing teachers and, it's April and May and the kids aren't crazy about writing. They want to get out. How can the teachers stay motivated and excited about teaching writing?
I think as writing teachers, we need to back away from the essay and really look at different and diverse formats that our students can try out. My students were just reading murder mystery novels from Agatha Christie to Maureen Johnson, who's more contemporary. And instead of them writing a thematic essay or a literary essay, I said, let's write our own creative murder mystery short stories. And I was amazed how my students were so invested into this. We looked and studied the elements of suspense and murder mystery, and they did research. And I said to my students, keep your stories between 1 to 5 pages, thinking that's a stretch for 8th graders. I had students write 19 pages.
Wow.
They had a blast, and we ended up doing a little March Madness murder mystery bracket where they voted for the top 4 in the class. So we had our Sweet 16 among all my classes. And then we went to our Final 4. And then from the Final 4, I just put everything on a Google Doc and Google Classroom, and they read through it and voted for the one story that they thought was the best.
So exciting. I bet that student was so excited.
Yes. So, creative writing is a great opportunity for students to bring their own voice and choices to the writing curriculum. Students can write multi-genre pieces where they don't just have to focus on one genre. April is National Poetry Month, so let's bring out some poetry and connect it across the content areas. We don't have to just always rely on that essay, because there's so many other writing formats that students can try out, even create a film, make a podcast.
So we've gotten so many more than 5, it may be 25. I'll have to go back and count. But the book that is coming out this June is New Realms for Writing. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.